أخيرا حققنا العدالة في قضية أبو غريب لبعض المعتقلين.
Finally, we reached some justice for some of the Abu Ghraib detainees.
شكرا لكم.
Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Bahar Azmi. I'm the legal director of the Center for Constitutional Rights, who have been working with these plaintiffs on this case and other Abu Ghraib torture-related cases against private contractors for over 16 years, as well as representing other victims of torture and ill treatment in the War on Terror. On behalf of our whole team at the Center for Constitutional Rights in Patterson-Belknap and Akil Valentine, we just feel enormously gratified that our clients were able to tell their story after 16 years to a jury in a U.S. courtroom. And we're awed by their courage and resilience to keep fighting for justice and maintaining their dignity in the face of 16 years of relentless attempts by the defendant in this case, Khaki Premier Technology, to deflect blame onto every entity but itself. But finally, we have a jury process where our peers hear evidence, and the evidence indisputably showed that this private military contractor, CACI, was central to organizing, ordering, participating, and perpetuating the torture and other forms of ill treatment at the hard site of the Abu Ghraib prison. The jury in this case found that our clients suffered torture or other forms of cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment. The jury found that CACI interrogators, Khaki interrogators, were integral to the plan, working with military police to soften up and set the conditions for abuses in Abu Ghraib to make it easier for Khaki interrogators to exploit our clients for information. And the jury awarded the plaintiffs the measure of justice that we use in a courtroom. We asked for, and they granted each plaintiff $3 million in compensatory damages and $11 million each in punitive damages, sending a strong message that this kind of corporate malfeasance and neglect and recklessness and deflection is outrageous and deserves to be punished. So this is a very important, maybe even historic day for justice and for vindication of international human rights principles, and a rare instance in the 20 years since 9/11 where victims of torture were heard and vindicated in a U.S. court. So we're all immensely gratified and proud of our clients.
Hi. My name is Mohammed Faridi, and I'm joined by my colleague Michael Buchanan from Patterson-Belknap. I'll say a couple of things and turn it over to Mike. Today is a day of victory and celebration for our clients, Salah, Assad, and Suhail. It's also a day of victory for our country and for those who celebrate and promote human rights, those who fight against impunity for violations of human rights, and those around our country and around our world stand up for victims of human rights abuses, such as our colleagues at the Center for Constitutional Rights. Our country's military leadership took swift action after the abuses at Abu Ghraib came to light in 2003. The military leadership appointed 4 different generals and high-ranking officials from our country's military leadership to investigate the abuses, and they found that the abuse was systemic, that it was illegal, that it was not sanctioned, and that Khaki, the defendant in this case, played a significant role in the abuses that were perpetuated against our clients. CACI, unfortunately, has denied accountability, has denied responsibility since in the last 21 years, notwithstanding the findings of facts that were made by our country's military leadership. The time has finally come for the truth to come out, for CACI to take responsibility, and for those who promote human rights, those who celebrate human rights, to have some measure of justice for those types of abuses, for the abuses that were perpetuated against our clients. It has been an honor for me, myself, personally, and for our firm, our team, which includes many lawyers from our firm, including Alex Mahler-Howe, Bonita Robinson, Scott Kim, Andrew Haddad, Sean O'Shea, Kayhan Rahimi, Joy Sadai, Margarita Alvarez, and Thomas Kisak, as well as those many other lawyers who worked on this matter before this current team inherited a couple of years ago to represent the victims of abuse at Abu Ghraib. Mike?
Not much to add. It is a great day for justice. These are troubling times in this country, and it's reassuring to know that an American jury can return justice for Iraqi men who were tortured at the hands of the American military contractors. This was a hard-fought victory. We were up against a well-funded and belligerent adversary who fought us every step of the way. And it's been a long, winding road, but the result today of justice is very satisfying. And I would like to thank the Center for Constitutional Rights and to our clients for placing their trust in us. For them, it's been a very personal journey, one that involved a lot of heartache and hardship. And we know how challenging it was for them to talk about the abuse they suffered in Abu Ghraib. And their courage is an inspiration to all of us. And we appreciated the opportunity to stand up in court and say that we are lawyers who represent them. It's been a real honor.
Katie, did you want to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you. Katie Gallagher from the Center for Constitutional Rights. I've had the immense privilege to represent Salah, Suhail, Assad in this case over the last 16 years, and to meet with them back in 2008 at the very start of the case, to have their faith and trust not only in us as lawyers, but in the American justice system is something that still I find amazing. It was the United States that invaded Iraq. It was the United States that detained our clients. And it was a US company that profited from their torture and abuse. And so to meet with us and to say that they wanted to pursue justice in a US court and then continue to do so over 16 years, where we've had the case dismissed, where we've gone up on appeal, where we've had to meet, whether in Turkey or in Lebanon, in various places around the world for all of the different steps along the way in this long-running litigation. We had a trial date in 2019 that was canceled. This is a retrial. It has been a very, very long road to justice. And our clients trusted, and I am so grateful for Salah, for Assad, and Suhail. And I know that they are here today in this case, not only for themselves, but for the many individuals, the men, the women, the children who were held at Abu Ghraib and also tortured. So I extend my thanks to them and to the jury for finding that there can be some measure of justice today for the torture survivors of Abu Ghraib.
Thanks, Katie. We'll open it for questions now. Please if you have a question, you can type it into the Q&A and I will read it out. Our first question, to your knowledge, is this the first time that CACI or any private military contractor has been found guilty of torture in a U.S. court of law?
I think that. Mhm. I think that's basically correct. There have been a number of cases brought against, of course, U.S. governmental officials that have been dismissed for post 9/11 conduct, and a number of cases brought against private entities involved in conspiring or perpetuating torture. A number that the Center for Constitutional Rights has brought have settled. One was against Blackwater. Another was against the translation interpretation company in Iraq called L3, or now Angility. So those had positive results outside of a jury verdict. And then there was a lawsuit brought by the ACLU and others against Mitchell and Jessen, the psychologists who were responsible for devising a torture program for detainees held in CIA custody. That settled. But as far as we know, this is the first torture case to go to United States jury to make findings of fact and conclude that these individuals endured torture as defined by international law and not as defined the way CACI would have it, in the way John Yoo or Dick Cheney would define torture. So to conclude that there was, in fact, torture and that this private military contractor was actually responsible. And I think the jury, by their substantial punitive award, signaled what they thought about CACI's responsibility, the severity of their breaches of human rights laws in their verdict.
I have a quick follow-up on that. Is it accurate to say that CACI was found guilty of torture? The verdict sheet appeared to show that they were found liable of torture or cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment.
So the verdict sheet was phrased in a way that would impose liability if CACI was found responsible for torture or cruel, inhuman, degrading treatment. So we can't really know for sure, but we think the evidence in the case and the expert testimony, including testimony from CACI's own medical doctor, suggests that there was overwhelming evidence that what our clients experienced rose to the level of torture under international law.
And just to follow up on that, we should say that that verdict form was also done by Judge Brinkema. So she saw that these two crimes were on a continuum. So I'm not sure that there is actually a significant difference of saying one versus the other. And we did not have any questions from the jury asking for any difference between one or the other. So I think the answer is yes, they were found liable for torture.
Great. So I have another question. What could this verdict mean, if anything, for torture cases going forward, whether for defense contractors or military officials? Also, how does the verdict address the broader question of finding responsibility in torture cases when there's no clear chain of command?
Katie, do you want to address that?
Sure. So I think that this case sends a very clear message to corporations and government contractors in particular that they can be and will be held accountable for their role in violations of law, whether that's international law or domestic law. Over the course of this litigation, which was brought under the Alien Tort Statute, there were repeated efforts at the US Supreme Court to have this law, the ATS, be found not to apply to corporations. And this case has survived 3 different judgments from the Supreme Court, including as recently as 2 years ago. And so the idea of corporations being held liable for international law violations is something that's possible. And for contractors too, that is a key issue in this case. CACI had tried to have this case dismissed under the political question doctrine, under derivative sovereign immunity, under government contractor defense, most recently under borrowed servant, all of which essentially boil down to the government told us to do it and they should be held accountable. And I think what the jury did today is send a very clear message that the contractors who go, whether it's to war or go work with the government overseas, they will be held accountable for their role in whatever violations their employees may commit. And so they have to have far better oversight over their employees to ensure that something like what happened at Abu Ghraib never happens again.
If I can just, or if you can just go on mute for a second. If I can just add to that, our colleague from Virginia who helped us try this case, Charles Mulster, indicated to us, and he is someone who's tried many cases within this jurisdiction and knows the veneer and the jurisdiction, which has many government contractors. He knows this jurisdiction really well. And he indicated to us that this is a message that is being sent out, not just to those abroad who perpetuate human rights abuses, but those here domestically, those who contract with our country's military and other agencies, that there is no impunity for violations of human rights. And that's a message that I think is going to be heard by the government contractor community, not just here in the DC area, but elsewhere in our country and perhaps around the world.
Thank you so much. I guess the last question I have is, what's next for the case and the plaintiffs?
So CACI they have a right to appeal. And I think none of us would be surprised if they exercise that right. We feel optimistic, even confident that the record fully supports the judgment that the jury made. The evidence was nearly overwhelming in this case about CACI's role in participating in and perpetuating and then turning a blind eye to the abuses at Abu Ghraib. And we've been on appeal before and have repeatedly prevailed. So we're hopeful that this judgment will stand once and for all, and that this historic record developed in this case will be effective and permanent.
Okay, last chance for further questions or final words. Okay. If you need anything, follow-up questions, please just email me at jnessel@ccrjustice.org. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining today, and congratulations. And
Thank you very much. Thank
this.
you.
All right.